So, quick question here. Travel. How awesome is it, or is it really a pain? So, I did do a lot of travel when I was right out of college. And what was great about my career, and I was lucky that this happened, is that I actually got on the road immediately and I was burning out very quickly. And I traveled for about a year, and then I got off the road for about 6 months, and then I got back on the road for a year, and then I got off the road for a while, and then I got back on the road. Um, in the relatively short career I had, about 9.5 years in consulting for a big company, but then I did my own consulting. But really, I didn't travel with my own consulting. In the big company, I flew about 750,000 miles, and so that was a lot. But that was like half of my career was traveling, and half wasn't. Here's what I noticed: travel is awesome. For me personally, it was awesome for the first few weeks, maybe even the first few months. I wouldn't even go so far to that. I'd say first 2 months, it's awesome. And here's where I flew. My first job was in Boca Raton, Florida for a year, which is about 20 minutes north, or I forget, about 20, 30 minutes north of Fort Lauderdale, right? And I was 21, 22. So it was pretty cool. I flew there every Monday morning, back every Thursday, and I did that flight 52 weeks in a row. I might have taken a vacation in there somewhere, but I flew it at least 48 times. And then I took 6 months off, and I went back on the road, and I flew to San Francisco for about a year. Uh, in that time, I also flew my 9 years. I flew to New York. I flew to Vancouver. I flew to Chicago a few times. I went a little bit all over the place, and Minnesota was a big place as well. The point being is this: think about your first day at class. First day at class is sometimes kind of exciting because it's new. You see people you know, and some people you don't know, and it can be exciting. Even if it's the best teacher you've ever had, think about how exciting it was. How exciting were you? How excited were you when it was the 18th day of class, right? And so my point is, the first day you're hopping on a plane, flying to wherever you're going, it's exciting because you're in the big time now, and it feels like, hey man, I'm traveling, I'm part of work, whatever. It's exciting. When you're taking that flight for the 32nd time, it doesn't matter anymore. That's my personal opinion. For some people who are jet setters, though, they love the life on the jet. They love the tiny meals. They love the points. They love all that. But all the points in the world weren't worth it for me. And so there was a point in time where the travel did wear on me enough, and I did have to kind of vacate that career. So it's my personal opinion on this, but I will say that you have to decide, are you okay flying to Fort Lauderdale or wherever you're going to go, or even a bad city? Think about that. In the city you don't think you're excited about going to. But let's say you fly there on Monday morning at 6 a.m. That means you have to pack early on Sunday, and you have to be in bed early on Sunday because you got to get up early and get the flight there. So it's not like you're flying to Hawaii. Right? You're flying to, you can fly to any city in America. And then you're coming back Thursday or Friday. And you're back, and you got to kind of get settled back in, and you have the weekend. Now, what happens if you have to turn around Sunday, pack again, and do that flight again, and repeat that weekly process 48 times? That's what I was experiencing. And within about 3 months, I was burning out pretty quickly. Um, Also, the one thing I noticed about travel was that I started running into the same people over and over again, seeing the same flight attendants over and over again. And within 3 months, I was actually ready to quit my job as a consultant. But someone convinced me to stick around and just stick it out so I could get on a local job. Here's the funny part. When I got back to Dallas, I was actually driving 45 minutes to an hour downtown to Dallas to get on to go to my client project. And so cumulatively, I was actually traveling at least an hour and a half or 2 hours a day in Dallas, 5 days a week. And I flew to San Francisco, and it was a 4 hour flight and a 4 hour flight back. So funny enough, I spent the same amount of time commuting when I was traveling as I did in town, for my commute. So ultimately, think about this, right? The points are nice and they are good, but they eventually run out. Your status runs out. The travel is fun. I think if you take smaller projects or shorter term projects, it could be a little bit more interesting because changing scenery or changing airports can be interesting. But when it's the same thing over and over again, when it's monotonous, that can be really, really tough. So it depends on your personal preferences, but I would not jump to the conclusion that travel is always awesome. Travel eventually wears out in terms of its glamour and prestige. So you have to make that personal decision. Do you want to be a jet setter, or just travel is something that you want to probably take on a little bit, or do you not want to travel at all? And if you don't want to travel at all, do you want to just be a commuter stuck in traffic, depending on where you're sitting, where you're living? So those are the things to consider. Hope that helps. Post your questions below. Let me know if you have any further ones. Thanks.